Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and we are talking about Mass Effect Andromeda. Now this is a game that recently got a ton of information over the past weekend. We got a release date, which is March 21st of 2017, so it's right around the corner. On top of that, we got a brand new gameplay trailer, which revealed a lot of details about Ryder, how classes are going to be built out with this new skill tree, as well as a snippet of gameplay which looks different, if I'm honest. That's the best way to describe it. Allow me to preface all of this by saying that different isn't bad, but this form of different is actually making me quite skeptical. When watching the initial big gameplay reveal for Mass Effect Andromeda, which was during the Game Awards, I saw that Ryder was out in the open a lot more, not taking cover in Mass Effect 3, where it was all about hunkering down in cover, using your powers in a more tactical way, telling your comrades in arms where to go. A lot more of the focus was on tacticianing. It seems like Andromeda's more taking the route of run out into the middle of nowhere, rush these enemies, use as many abilities as possible, which doesn't really look bad. It looks like a great game. Just for me, as I said, it looks different. But that difference has led to skepticality, and why exactly is that? Well, you know how my feelings are on Dragon Age Inquisition, and if you don't, this is a title that I felt was wildly underwhelming. If you disagree with that, I totally understand why, because it's not a bad game, it's just a game that didn't meet my standards personally, but if you like it, I totally understand. One of the biggest issues I felt with Dragon Age Inquisition was its huge focus on gameplay. What I felt made BioWare and Dragon Age special was their focus on storytelling, on character creation, and what I think Dragon Age Inquisition did was try to get the player involved in a lot of the feedback loops that the gameplay offered, such as hunting down certain enemies, collecting this or that, very basic objectives, but that kept the player just essentially playing the game. I felt it oversimplified the idea of the gameplay and became a much different Dragon Age that I wasn't a fan of compared to Dragon Age Origins. If you're having trouble relating to this example using Dragon Age Inquisition, then perhaps one that I feel a lot of us can relate to, especially now after it's all said and done, is Fallout 4. It's very vastly different from previous entries of the title, and it takes away from what exactly was a Fallout game in many ways. So yes, this same logic applies not only to my feelings about Fallout 4, but also for those who are having trouble understanding my thoughts on Inquisition. That's how I feel about this title as well, because I know a lot of people were very confused on why exactly I didn't like Inquisition. I mean, it won Game of the Year, right? And mind you, it's not that I have an issue with the action battle system of Inquisition, because I liked it in 2 actually. I was one of the few people who had a decent time with Dragon Age 2 compared to many others out there. But when we look at Dragon Age Origins and then we look at Dragon Age Inquisition, the difference is vast. And the same could be said when we look at Mass Effect 3, how you're mostly in cover, you're not playing as aggressive unless you're something like a Vanguard, for example, where Andromeda does look vastly different, where you don't see him in cover at all. I don't know about you guys, I play on the higher difficulties in Mass Effect. If I'm out for even half the time that Ryder is out of cover in this gameplay demo in an older Mass Effect game, I'm dead. Ryder seemed like he could soak up a ton of damage. This was likely for the demo itself based off the skill points he allocated at the beginning. It seemed like this is a much more powerful form of Ryder at maybe an earlier level that I'm entirely unsure of. But yeah, it looks different. I mean, it looks fun. Don't get me wrong. It looks like I'm gonna have a good time with it, but hopefully the gameplay loops built around it are something that is of substance, that doesn't drag away from what makes BioWare games great, which is the combination of, yes, good gameplay, but also fantastic storytelling and amazing character development. At least that's the pedestal I put BioWare on. Maybe people have it backwards where they're like, yeah, they tell decent stories with that gameplay though. And while I am not a fan of using YouTube comments and ratings to justify my opinion, I was actually shocked to see that I'm still in the minority on this thought, but that there are a decent amount of people who weren't pleased with the latest Mass Effect gameplay, so I'm very curious to see how this game's going to be received around launch. Speaking of which, we're so close to the launch of the game, and I feel like I don't know much about the title. We know this takes place after Mass Effect 3, and that they're in a different galaxy in case that the Reaper invasion was a success. We know we're playing as Ryder. We know very vague details about him. We know the voice actors for both femme and male Ryder. We know there's going to be a bigger focus on loyalty missions and developing relationships with your companion, so it does seem like they're on a good path from what we've heard. I wonder if they're taking more of the Fallout 4 route of things, where they've been keeping very quiet on things, and now they're going to start taking the lid off of things a little bit, but for the most part staying vague so that players really enjoy the experience given to them. I'd personally like a little bit more information on Mass Effect Andromeda, and I'm sure I will get it in the coming months, or at least I'd hope so. With that being said, I do feel like going into games slightly blind, watching a trailer or two, keeping up to date on some of the news, but not absolutely diving headfirst in like a lot of people did with Fallout 4, where you basically know a lot of the game before it's even in your console. So I think there's a balance to strike here, and maybe this is the plan with BioWare. I do remember talking to Shinobi on the podcast, and he said that Mass Effect was going to be taking the Fallout 4 route of really just keeping things quiet for a while and letting the game launch, having fans pretty much hype it up themselves. Regardless though, I do hope that Mass Effect Andromeda is a game that I very much enjoy, as I love the series to death, and I'm very curious to see what you guys think about the latest Mass Effect Andromeda news and gameplay, so let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook, the links are as always in the description down below. Check out TriggerBomb.com, the place by Bethesda fans for Bethesda fans. Other than that, stay sexy, stay active, I love you all, peace.